How did Klaus Schwab, in the span of a few decades, amass all of that power? I mean, how did he get the world's most powerful people in the same room at the same time every year, let alone get them all to agree on a global agenda? That seemed off to me. So I went back to the beginning, to the introduction of the WEF, because I knew I'd missed something. And I had, because I thought that Klaus Schwab had founded the WEF by himself, and whilst technically he had, I had missed the person who had helped him all along, a man named Henry Kissinger. Now, who the hell is Henry Kissinger, and why does he matter? Well, for starters, he is listed as an influence on Klaus Schwab in his Wikipedia page, which I thought was quite odd. But who really is Henry Kissinger? Now, according to this official biography, he's a German-born American politician, army surgeon, diplomat, and consultant. He served as a Secretary of State and National Security Advisor under President Nixon and Ford. He also earned a BA in political science from Harvard, where he would go on to meet Klaus Schwab in 1966 and would eventually become Schwab's mentor. And by 1973, he had won a Nobel Peace Prize and remained a key foreign policy player in the 70s. And in 1977, he actually won the Presidential Medal of Freedom, and in 1986, he received the Medal of Liberty. I mean, a pretty impressive guy by all objective metrics, right? Now, as a 99-year-old, he regularly speaks at the WEF, he owns his own diplomacy consultancy, and he's the author of 33 books, the latest one coming out only last year. So it's pretty safe to say that Kissinger remains active in both business and politics. And it's also clear to see that Kissinger was a key influence on Schwab. He helped him in the creation of the WEF and continued being his mentor, as he still is. Well, with a guy like that by its side, I mean, maybe the WEF isn't too bad after all, right? I mean, surely a Nobel Peace Prize recipient can't possibly have non-peaceful motives. Well, if my investigation has taught me something, it's to never assume. So I kept digging into Henry Kissinger with the goal of finding out, who is he really? I'd analyzed dozens of speeches he'd given. I'd perused his most known books and his recent talk at the WEF with his closest confidant, Klaus Schwab. So let's have a look at one of his speeches at the WEF. Now, during the speech, Kissinger warned of a dilution of confidence in classic economic models, a challenge to the capitalist system, but also noted that a demoralization of the socialist systems which nowhere have produced the satisfaction of the human personality, and he concluded that all of these changes are global and would make ours a period of turmoil, even apart from any specific challenge that we face. I mean, that sounds rather timely, doesn't it? It kind of sounds like everything else the WEF has been saying lately. Only one difference. The speech is from 1980, 43 years ago, yet their tune hasn't changed one bit. And after I read that, I knew there was more to Kissinger. So I kept digging. Now, it turns out this career politician wasn't as squeaky clean as his bio would suggest, and his Global Peace Prize was as riddled with as much controversy as his politics. I mean, he'd been embroiled in scandals like the 1973 Chilean military coup as the Secretary of State, where the US interfered with democratic Chilean elections because they didn't align with their objectives. Kissinger was no stranger to undermining democracy, and I can see why he fit in so well with World Economic Forum. I mean, he even said, "I don't see why we need to stand by and watch our country go communist due to the irresponsibility of its people. The issues are much too important for the Chilean voters to be left to decide for themselves." I mean, that really speaks for itself. He also greenlighted Argentina's military for their dirty war and led US support for Pakistan during the Bangladesh liberation. Pakistan, who were committing genocide, by the way. And there's even a book written about all the alleged war crimes he's committed, which was later turned into a documentary. And he won his Nobel Peace Prize for negotiating a ceasefire in Vietnam, but the ceasefire never even lasted, which is why his prize was so controversial. Kissinger also hid the bombing of Cambodia from Congress, so I can see why Klaus Schwab took a liking to him. And the most interesting fact was this: Kissinger was a Secretary of State under President Nixon, the very same president who got the US off the gold standard the exact same year the World Economic Forum was created by Kissinger's own prodigy. I mean, I'm sure you can start to see how everything really starts to connect here, and how there seems to be a few figures pulling the strings from the shadows. Anyways, one specific book that Kissinger wrote really got my attention. It was titled World Order, and World Order was truly an insight into Kissinger's mind. And it wasn't pretty. In the book, he writes on the role of government and those in it. The state is a fragile organization, and the statesman does not have the moral right to risk its survival on ethical restraint. In his vision for the world, it is a melancholy fact that the countries which are most humanitarian, which are most interested in internal improvement, tend to grow weaker compared to the other countries which possess a less altruistic civilization. But even after I'd uncovered who Henry Kissinger truly was, I still had an unanswered question. What was his role in the Great Reset? And after a few days of immersing myself in this despicable character that is Henry Kissinger, I found this quote that ended up changing the course of my entire investigation. Who controls the food supply controls the people. Who controls the energy can control whole continents. And who controls the money can control the world. This whole time I'd been so focused on the money. I thought the Great Reset was all about controlling the money. But there was a much bigger story that was hidden in plain sight. I had completely neglected two other major pillars that play a major role in the Great Reset plan: controlling the food and controlling the money. Food. WEF food. The end of meat. The rise of bugs as snacks. What the hell does an organization called the World Economic Forum care about what you eat? What the hell does Klaus Schwab gain from forcing bugs down your throat? And why is meat so bad all of a sudden? So I thought I'd begin by analyzing what the World Economic Forum themselves were saying. It became apparent pretty quickly that the attack on food was underpinned by two things: climate change and how unhealthy the foods we eat are. And again, they're just trying to save you from yourself. Because of course, the World Economic Forum knows the best. You know, the apparent climate crisis demands that we stop eating meat because it produces so much harm for the environment. And as I kept looking into this, I found countless articles saying how horrible meat production is for the environment. But you see, something felt off. I saw back to my investigation in episode 1. The puppet masters used crisis to push their own agenda, and every crisis is a unique opportunity. You see, something was off. They're telling you that a few gassy cows are so bad for the climate that we have to stop eating the very thing that sustained us for thousands of years. I don't think so. I mean, surely there had to be more to the story. And there was. It turns out that the US, where most of this propaganda came from, had a very, very complicated history with food. There are over 30 foods that are available for sale and consumption deemed edible in the US that are actually banned in most of the world. And that didn't sit right with me. I mean, the same people that were saying meat is so dangerous and so bad for the climate were selling you things literally banned in the rest of the world for being too dangerous to eat. And that, my friends, is the puppet master's hypocrisy for you. And these weren't just some niche products that nobody eats. These were household names, staples in the American diet. Products like Skittles, coffee creamer, and even apples. Yes, even apples, which are treated with a chemical called DPA, which has been linked to various cancers. Yet, the FDA turns a blind eye. Why? Because they don't actually care about your health or the environment. Otherwise, why would Mountain Dew, one of America's most popular sodas, include brominated vegetable oil, which is used in flame retardants and which the CDC themselves has said leads to memory loss and impaired coordination? Or things like Fruit Loops, which have ingredients proven to lead to the inhibition of cell development, yet nearly every child is fed it in the morning. And the most popular coffee creamer, Coffee Mate, contains hydrogenated soybean and cottonseed oils. And Skittles contains a dye called Yellow 5 and Yellow 6, just like Twinkies, both of which have been linked to various cancers. Yet these products line the shelves of every single American supermarket and no one bats an eye. But meat? Oh no, you can't eat that. But fake lab-grown meat? Oh, that's no problem, says the FDA. Upside Foods lab-grown meat is biologically identical to standard meat, but it doesn't require killing animals. Its cultivation process begins with cells extracted from real chickens, which the company grows in tanks with a nutrient mixture that includes fats, sugars, amino acids, and vitamins. The cells mature and multiply according to NPR's Allison Aubrey. The process is similar to brewing beer, but instead of growing yeast or microbes, we grow animal cells, says Uma Valetti, who's Upside Foods founder and CEO, and she told that to CNN earlier this year. But to me, one question still remained. Why is the World Economic Forum incentivized to promote all of these foods? And the answer was a lot simpler than I thought it would be.